Do you want to build a house in the UK? Or maybe buy a plot, get planning permission and sell it for a profit? My name is Neil, I'm an architect based in Edinburgh and I've been designing homes since 2009. I started offering consultations to potential home builders across the UK 2 years ago, and I've spoken to a lot of people who find plots at auction and want my advice before they bid. In all that time, I've not once seen a plot for sale at auction that I believe would get planning permission. It dawned on me recently, there's a pattern here. Land auctions are selling small plots of land across the UK which stand almost no chance of being developed. That's not to say they never sell viable plots, there just seems to be a lot of duds on the market. Sellers aren't doing anything wrong, the plots are sold as seen and they are advertised for very low prices, sometimes less than the cost of a second-hand car. It's up to the buyer to make all necessary inquiries before bidding on the plot for sale. So what's going on here? Why are small, hopeless plots of land being sold at auction? And more importantly, what can you do if you want to buy a plot to build a house in the UK? I know 3 ways of getting land that stands a good chance of having a house built on it. One is expensive, the second is really expensive, and the third way is complicated. None of these ways is guaranteed, but they will increase your odds of success. I've put timestamps below if you want to skip ahead. Let's get started. Auctions. Before I dive into finding a site for a house, let's look at auctions. Why are so many small plots of land being sold without planning permission in the UK? Well, you have to start by asking how these plots came into being. These are some of the plots of land that clients discussed with me during online consultations. Some are weird plots in the middle of housing estates and others are awkward plots in the countryside, often in the greenbelt. Some plots in housing estates are just the result of awkward local geometry. Sometimes there are strips of land left undeveloped to allow visibility displays at road junctions or large drains running between houses. The crucial thing is the original developers retained ownership until it no longer suited them. Sometimes they sell these plots just to avoid maintenance cost or public liability insurance issues. The problem is that big house building companies listed on the stock market or small local housing associations are both required to show value for money when they sell an asset. Now, we all understand how to value a typical house. Just compare it to a neighbour's property that sold recently and you get an idea of what your house might be worth. But it's not possible to do that with random plots of land because each one is unique and there won't be a regular marketplace to compare against. Auctions are a great way to establish the price of an unusual plot of land and to demonstrate to shareholders or trustees that it's sold for the best price. Why not sell the plot with planning permission? At this point, you might be asking, why doesn't the owner develop the site themselves or at least get planning permission before selling the land? Surely that's the way to get the best value. Not so fast. If you own a strip of land that might be big enough for a house, you face a difficult choice. Yes, getting planning approval would massively increase the value, but if you apply for planning permission and it gets refused, that becomes public knowledge. Anyone can look up the local planning portal and see the site was refused permission. That means the value of the land will plummet. Sure, getting a refusal won't prevent someone reapplying for planning permission in the future, and lots of sites have been developed after several failed attempts to get permission. But that takes time and it costs money. If you don't roll the dice and just sell the plot without planning, you leave open the possibility that the site can be developed, and that appears to entice novice buyers with no experience of property development. The other thing property owners might do is have a pre-application discussion. They contact the planners, pay a modest fee, ask them to review drawings showing what they would like to apply for, and get the planner's opinion. The crucial thing to understand is that a pre-application discussion is private. Unlike a planning application, no record of this will appear on the local council planning portal. I can't prove it, but my suspicion is that some owners have pre-application discussions, find out the odds of developing their land is somewhere between 0 and diddly squat, then they decide to sell the land at auction. So what to do if you want to buy a site to build a house? These are 3 good ways to go about it. Now, I warned you at the beginning, this was expensive, so here goes. Buy a site with planning permission. It might sound obvious, but this is where you want to start. Just be sure you understand the difference between outline planning permission and full planning permission. There are pros and cons to each. With outline planning, you are buying land that has planning in principle only. You will still need to design a house and apply for full planning permission. Keep in mind that the planners don't ask for as much information during an outline application, so you might discover during your full planning application that the site has no access to drainage and isn't big enough for a septic tank or soakaway, or can't form a safe legal access to the public road. Always take professional advice before committing to buy a site for sale with outline planning permission. If you buy land with full planning approval, the house design is locked in. If you want to change the design to match your needs, you will need to make a new planning application. But on balance, buying a site with planning is much less risky than buying a plot of land with no statutory approvals. It will cost you a lot more, but not as much as my next tip: buy a small house with a big garden. I know, this sounds mad, but I've seen it done. It's based on the idea that getting planning permission for a house is much easier if it's replacing an existing dwelling. There is some basis in fact for this, but it's not universally true, and I wouldn't run out and buy a house with the intention of replacing it without doing lots of research first. That said, if you have deep pockets, this could potentially be a savvy investment. I've seen small-time property developers replace one small house with 2 or 3 homes, keep one for themselves, and sell the others to pay for it all, essentially getting a free house out of the deal. This is not the kind of thing someone with no experience should take on. It is expensive and fraught with risks, but it is feasible, provided you can find the right property to develop, and that's where my final suggestion comes in. Get on an estate agent's buyer's list. Land ripe for development changes hands all the time, often without being offered for public sale. The seller and the buyer are brought together by an estate agent because the buyer is on the agent's list. Getting on an estate agent's buyer's list is often as simple as being unsuccessful when bidding for a property. If the agent likes you, thinks you're a serious client who won't waste their time or mess their sellers around, they will call you up the next time a similar property comes to market. The value of buyer's lists is that they facilitate quick sales for anyone wanting to offload a property. The estate agent will tell a buyer they can save time and fees by agreeing a sale quickly with one of their buyers. You can't just apply to be put on a buyer's list, you need to demonstrate to the estate agent that you are a serious player who won't mess their clients around. Remember, the estate agent's job is to sell property. If you want to be given access to potential sites for development before they are advertised on the open market, you need to be able to conclude a sale quickly. A lot of this comes down to soft skills and personal relationships. It can be a case of not what you know, but who you know. But if you are a cash buyer willing to pay a fair price for land with planning permission, I suggest you contact local estate agents and ask about their buyers lists. Some estate agents also offer advice on the viability of sites without planning, and I've been told a few even facilitate pre-application discussions for their sellers. But take my advice, unless you've done this before, stick to buying plots with planning. So there you go. Buying plots of land to build a house in the UK can be challenging, expensive, and stressful. If you are thinking of buying a site anywhere in the UK and you want my advice, you can book an online consultation with me on the reallifearchitecture.co.uk website. I've put a link in the description. And if you would like to learn more about the design and construction process, you can join the Real Life Architecture membership community. There's a members-only WhatsApp chat group, live streams with industry experts, online Q&A sessions with me, group Zoom calls to discuss planning, building regulations, construction costs, and much more, as well as free access to my project guide document, which normally costs £10. There's a link in the description, so check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. That really helps the channel.